Recap in minutes. In today's video, we will be enjoying a war film, entitled The East. There will be spoilers ahead, chill out and enjoy. The movie begins in 1946. Johan de Vries, a young Dutch soldier serving in Indonesia, comes to Dutch East Indie. Matthias Cohen, a fellow recruit, greeted him at the station. In addition to obtaining new uniforms and equipment, Johan and the other freshly arrived recruits were required to register their profiles with the reception officer. Later that evening, the new recruits gathered in a hall and listened to Major Pender for his welcoming address. He told how the Japanese attacked their colony and were commanded by Sukarno, who Pender branded as a bastard and a coward. A military vehicle will transport the new recruits to Camp Matian Liar on the next day. When they first arrive, they are met by the barracks commander, who gives them a short tour of their new place. Because they don't know who the imposters are, new recruits are told not to put their faith in anybody else. As soon as Johan and Corporal Kulin arrived at their sleeping quarters, Johan almost got into a fight with his comrade. The regulations of the camp are taught to them by Major Pender. The fresh recruits were informed by Lieutenant Hartmann that they would be split into 3 groups and sent on patrols. Afterward, the major and lieutenant let them go to work on their personal belongings. On the same night, everyone in the dining hall, including the new recruits, assembled for a prayer led by Major Pender. All of the troops returned to their barracks after supper, save for Johan, who chose to explore the camp before going to bed. He saw an officer in the camp trafficking women, who then led the victims into a nearby room. Johan disregarded this and made his way to the camp's night watch. He strikes up a conversation with the on-duty night guard and requests a smoke. It was Johan's decision to step in for the time being. Outside the camp, Johan and other troops are scouting a rice field the following morning. Johan inquired of a nearby farmer, using a translation book, about any strange activity. Even though the farmer seemed afraid in his presence, Johan reassured the farmer that he would do no harm. The recruits have arrived to assist in defense of the region. As Johan and his troops continued their search, one of the locals approached them and gave them information. The locals informed them that there had been no unusual activity in the prior months. They're keeping an eye out for any suspicious activity for the time being. Gunshots could be heard suddenly outside. One of the guards had shot a monkey, so they went to investigate right away. Later that night, they prepared the monkey and served it to one another like a meal. After dinner, one of the soldiers sang a song around the campfire. Later on in the day, Johan and the others are roused from their rest by a screaming child. Previously, they'd checked upon him as a resident of a neighboring community. The kid observed a strange activity in their town the previous night. The patrol leader had everything ready and packed up right away so they could check out the neighborhood. To be safe, they are instructed to be on high alert at all times. It's shocking to see 2 heads of deceased individuals with their private organs in their mouths displayed outside a home in the village. When Johan saw the horrific crime, he puked. That night, Johan and the other soldier reviewed what they had seen earlier and came up with a list of potential suspects. Recruits were given a heads up by Lieutenant Hartmann before they left the camp that they may end up in the forest. It was a long distance from the patrol's base of operations. The patrol cautioned Johan not to pursue the suspects. Johan is out buying with a native in the public market. He saw the Japanese robbing the natives of their belongings. After being ordered to leave, Johan stayed to aid the locals. Captain Turk, a commanding officer, came in his vehicle and greeted him. The captain threatened the Japanese that he would shoot their commander in the head if they didn't return the stolen goods. Captain Turk is joined by Johan, who issues a warning to the other Japanese soldiers to put down their weapons. The Japanese soldiers followed and departed, as well. Johan inquired about Captain Turk's location as they made their approach to the camp. Johan was awed by Captain Turk's strength and unflinching bravery, something he had never seen before. This individual piqued Johan's interest, and he set out to find him by asking around. However, Johan and his group headed out for a night of fun in the town in a nearby village. Aside from attending the show and mingling with the locals, they also overnight leased females to have a good time. His first encounter with Gita, a local prostitute, was in the red light area. Gita was a great hostess to Johan and really loved their journey to the heaven of sins. Following a long night's sleep, Johan and his team were all exhausted when they reported to their captain the following day. They got a fantastic night's sleep after their walk night. This 3-day patrol across Claving Sawa territory was declared by the commander. The commander overheard Matthias complaining to Johan about the expedition. Their task would be overseen by Corporal Kulin, the commander revealed. Immediately after their dismissal, they headed directly into the woods and searched every local for any signs of any rebels. Johan conducts an interview with a resident called Gatot. According to Gatot, it is safe for him to provide the whereabouts of the rebels. Gatot, on the other hand, remained silent and claimed ignorance. Since the fresh recruits were sent out 3 months ago, they haven't encountered a single enemy. Johan and his squad are out again to patrol and secure the region they've been assigned to monitor and protect. They've made it to the bush, where they've seen wild monkeys. Before they could cross the river, Corporal Kulin's team heard gunshots and hit one of the soldiers, Werner. Johan promised Werner that they would all be able to return home if he survived. But unfortunately, he was not able to make it and died instantly. The soldiers returned to the camp and buried Werner. In the distance, the captain keeps a watch out for the fallen soldier's grave. On the same night, Johan, Matthias, and Del Val go to the pub to have a drink about Werner's loss. To complicate matters, Matthias insulted an Indies Queen image and then got into a brawl with a group of Japanese people who were also drinking in the same pub. As Del Val lay dying, Johan and Matthias managed to flee the bar. He went directly to the red light area to take off some steam with Gita since he was so frustrated. Major Pender summons Johan and Matthias the next day. The messes they've made will be probed. Corporal Kulin tells Johan that he will die if he gets into any trouble. Due to Johan's father, he is also cautioned against becoming a traitor. Because they were aware that his father had been a member of the Nazis, Johan was outraged. When the troops learned that the rebel who shot and murdered Werner had been arrested, their morning routine was disrupted. Lieutenant Hartmann requested Johan's assistance in questioning the rebel. The rebels merely said they wanted Indonesia to be free. Johan is in charge of posting the camp the following day. In front of the gate, a local man approaches to tell him about the rebels. Johan attempted to stop the guy, but the information he had was critical, so he allowed the man to continue to blab about the rebel group's origins in the Indonesian city of Semarang. To Major Pender, Johan went with the local. It's known as Gagak Hitam. The local is pleading for aid because the rebels have kidnapped his 2 daughters and are holed up in his home. Johan has turned to Captain Turk for assistance after being declined by Major Pender to seek for rebels. Johan accompanied the local to him and left all the knowledge he had on him. The captain asked the local if he could provide him with instructions to his home. He'll track down the insurgents. In recognition of Johan's bravery, Captain Turk has requested him to accompany him on this journey. Johan escaped from the camp to join Captain Turk and a local called Samuel on the day of their operation. He'll help Captain Turk and Johan find the map the locals asked for his assistance in finding. To avoid detection by the insurgents, they must disguise themselves and blend in with the woods. Samuel is in charge of executing the rebel guards at the victim's residence. In the end, they were able to find the 2 women and kill the remaining rebels who had surrounded the home where they were hiding. Since that day, Johan and Captain Turk have been hunting down the rebels without the Major's permission. The courageous guy once told him that his first kill was very significant. Turk had handed Johan his gun, with which he shot and killed the insurgent as a memento. In contrast, Major Pender orders Johan and Matthias to free the captive rebel. When they got into the forest, they tied the rebel to his hands and let him run free. On the other hand, Johan counted him up to 5 and shot him dead. Like his buddy Werner, he savagely executed the insurgent. To Captain Turk, Johan continues to report on the progress of his potent weapon of choice. Meanwhile, Johan is beginning to have emotions for Gita and has even started to give her presents and money. Captain Turk and Johan have been invited to a party that evening. Captain Turk convenes a secret conference with other military leaders in order to assemble an elite force to combat the insurgents. After convincing a few of his co-workers to join Captain Turk's newly established special forces, Johan has begun training them. Along with getting to know Gita romantically, he also helped the former prostitute decide to leave the dark alleys of the Light District for good. Captain Turk elevates Johan to the rank of corporal in recognition of his outstanding performance. On his way to Gita's residence one morning, Johan notices something odd about Gita. He was compelled to crawl beneath the bed to enter Gita's house. Johan was able to track down Gita's fiancée. Gita has profited financially through the exploitation of Johan. He hurriedly exited the room in order to calm down. It's the day of their special operation, and Johan's soldiers are stationed on a remote island. It was time for them to settle in. They slept and prepared their weapons for their first task of the day. Early the following day, they attack the community. They have reason to believe that the locals are rebels themselves. Johan has a nagging suspicion that something isn't quite right with their operation. These 15 persons are on Captain Turk's list of suspects from the village. Individually calling out each name and then murdering them, he goes down the list one by one. Johann and his men bury the victims of this massacre. Even if Captain Turk's information was accurate, Johann wanted to know whether Turk's knowledge was 100% accurate. Johann has changed his mind about their purpose. Captain Turk's special forces became a household name for killings in every community they stormed. No one should be questioned and then executed for crying out their name. This is the first time Johann has gone against his comrades and the Captain Turk's group. Instead of executing the local, who had been identified as an enemy, he sought to stop the captain. Johann is now being detained as a traitor and is suspected of betrayal by Captain Turk's special forces. When he was rescued by Captain Turk's, he was only allowed a limited amount of time from the team's grasp. They'll murder Johann if they find him. Johann is now lurking in the bush, trying to figure out how to get to the ship. After seeing a soldier while the rest of the army was chasing him, Johann shot and killed one of the soldiers. To ensure his own survival, he pursues them one by one. Captain Turk is waiting for Johann at the shore where the ship is docked. Captain Turk fired Johann as he was trying to flee. The movie ends with Johann returning to his hometown and beginning a new life as a factory worker. As he reminisces about his time in Indonesia, he's still on the lookout for Captain Turk. Johann recognized Captain Turk as an opera performer when he saw him. In the backstage area, he finds Captain Turk and shoots him. Johann took his own life after this. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this and help the channel grow.